Okay, we started recording. So thank you for coming to the channel. And, I've been on your channel for a few times. And I want to give this as an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to my subscribers. And hopefully they like what they see and they can, come and subscribe to your channel. And
Definitely. Thanks,
so
Paul.
if,
Appreciate it. Ready
yeah,
to
no
talk
problem.
geopolitics, science, medicine, the whole nine. So, yeah,
Great.
I go by Addy Ads on my channel. From the Midwest, just like Paul. And I actually started making videos when I was, honestly, when I was in middle school was the first time I posted a video on YouTube, but I never really got into it consistently until a couple of years ago. And I actually had a channel deleted because of, well, I was making videos about World War II and they got flagged for one reason or another. So that channel actually got completely terminated. So, but my new channel, I'm basically just interviewing people that I find interesting, people that catch my eye, like yourself, Sean Atwood. I think I do obviously prefer interviewing people in person, and maybe we can do that one day, Paul, because I do have a friend who lives in New York. But ever since this pandemic, I've just been trying to take advantage of, just video conferencing, Skyping, and recording that way too. So
That's great. Yeah, definitely. I would like that. We could, do a live recording,
yeah, and
person to
Paul
person.
actually, I don't know how many of your subscribers have came over to check out our roundtable that we got going on my channel too. We got Dr. Kevin McCairn from England there as well, Dr. Jay Cooey, and we had another Dr. Robert Young last week. So I'm just trying to get different people on the show, different scientists' opinions, and just networking too. I think just finding the right people to talk to, and that's one thing too is I try to talk to anyone that I think might be interesting, even if they may have a different philosophy than myself. I try to think differently and at least be open to entertaining the idea for a little bit, albeit even if I don't agree with it.
Right. So before we get into the COVID-19 stuff, just what was kind of the reason for, doing interviewing and doing YouTube and what was really the catalyst for you? I mean,
Yeah,
for
that's
me, it was just I was just doing a video log of kind of like a diary. It was actually uh, it was almost partially a healing process when my brother died. I realized he died, obviously so young, and he didn't really have a lot that he left behind. He didn't have any kids. He wasn't married, So when we were starting to clean out his house, getting it ready to be sold, there wasn't like anything really left. He didn't write a book. He didn't, he died in 2010, so there wasn't like any videos of him that I could, I only have like old pictures. And so I kind of realized that I wanted to leave something behind if something happened. So I just started doing a video log. And, it was talking about economics, some opinions about politics, some science stuff, whatever was on my mind at the time. So, and then this COVID-19 thing happened and I just went 100% on it. But I mean, that was kind of my story and why I started a channel, back, I don't know,
Yeah, you have videos
2012 or
from
something.
like 7 years ago, I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
only have well now your videos are doing really well. Yeah, because
I
of the
was doing
pandemic.
really well back then. I was doing really well if I had 56 views. I
Yeah.
was I was like super super happy, like, oh my god, 56 views.
Yeah, and
Now,
I
I
remember,
mean,
and
it's
I don't know if it does it anymore, but it would stop at three. I think it was 301 views. It would stop for a bit because the servers, for whatever reason, they would stop you there to make sure you weren't like artificially, like just pressing F5 the whole time. So I remember, I don't know if it still does that though, but the old YouTube I remember because I got to like 300 and I was like, yes, I got to the point. And I was like, why is it stopping? And I realized that they used to do that anyway. So
yeah, yeah. No, it's so that was the reason why I started the channel.
yeah.
So just dive in if you want to on why you
Yeah,
started your channel.
definitely. Well, I love podcasts and I've been listening to them since college consistently, which is 3 or 4 years ago now. Probably 4 years ago now, because it was towards the beginning of college, and it was kind of before. Because now, it's crazy how many there are, and there's so many options. But it was honestly the Tim Ferriss podcast that I was listening to that I really loved, and I loved the way he asked questions, and also the fact that he would let the interview have like breathing room, because I think that's one thing that a lot of interviewers don't do. For example, like Charlie Rose, like I have a hard time watching him because of how much he just like interrupts people. And even Joe Rogan used to be like this, in my opinion. I used to have a pretty low opinion of Joe Rogan because you could just tell, and this is a long time ago now, but you could tell he kind of felt out of his element talking to some people, and he would kind of interject at the wrong points. So it was interesting because despite that, I would still listen to those types of interviews because the content was so interesting to me. But when you listen to so many podcasts and so many interviews, you pick up on things that like annoy you. And by extension, my thought is, well, if it annoys me, and I've seen this a lot, there's probably a good chance it annoys somebody else too. So if I can eradicate, being an annoying interviewer, that's a big thing. It's just shutting up, asking a good question and shutting up. And it's so hard for people to do, but I think the best interviewers do that. So
Yeah. Well, I find the best shows when I'm either conducting or I'm just on their channel. It's when it's bi-directional. Where not
yeah.
one person is talking over the other, just having it just as a conversation. But before we carry on, because my whole new setup here, I have to plug in my iPad. I forgot, so just
Okay.
it's
No
running
worries.
low. So just hold
Yeah.
on.
Take your time. Oh, there you go.
You still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. So,
That's really interesting question, though. I've never nobody's asked me that yet, so I appreciate that, Paul.
see, I'm becoming professional.
Yeah. You're getting better at this. You got
Yeah.
you got a good following now, which I think is awesome, man. I think more people should be following doctors instead of the Kardashians and folk like that.
Well, that's true. I mean, this country is so focused on the celebrity,
Yeah.
very superficial, aspects to their lives. Um, you don't have to just, you don't have to pay attention to quote a doctor, but I think it's very important to talk to people that are interested in really important subjects in people's lives instead of, butt lifts,
Yeah.
from the Kardashians, but
Well, just talking to smart
Brazilian butt
people,
lifts. Yeah,
people that have experience in things that you don't.
yeah, yeah. And it just anyone can educate themselves to get to a certain, competency level. It takes the time to do it. So,
Definitely. And you
yeah,
are, I'm not going to say your age, Doc, but you're definitely older than I thought you were. And I think Doc McCarran, too, we're like, man, he looks young.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was because of the heart disease that ran on my mother's side, and I saw so much death when I was young, before I turned 16. That I mean, I saw a lot of people die young.
What
And
precautions did you take because of that?
I read a book. I
What's the secret,
accidentally
Doc?
so my parents always took us to Borders when it was still around until they
I
went
remember
bankrupt. But
Borders. My mom would take
yeah,
us there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we were always roaming around, and I found in the health section this book about anti-aging, and I was like, "What's that?" And I purchased it, and I read it and followed the protocol, and it was all about antioxidants and and proper eating, and exercise, and I followed that since I was 16 years old. And as the nutraceutical world developed, and the compounds got better, I just upgraded the protocol. So that's what happened. And
What do
I was
you take?
into triathlons when I was in my 20s and 30s.
Hmm. What do you take in terms of supplements that the layman could take? Because I mean, I just take like fish oil and a multivitamin, which I love fish oil. It's such a good bang for the buck, in terms of
Hmm.
just spending
When
money.
when you say the fish oil, are you taking the omega-3 or omega-6 or a compound or what?
I think it's both. It's a compound, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because they've been doing some research lately in arteriosclerosis, and the uh, the omega-3s seem to be doing pretty well for reducing heart disease. But there are also compounds for anti-aging,
Mhm.
partially because they're kind of anti-inflammatory.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. And I've
so
read krill oil is actually better than fish oil. I don't know if you've
see,
ever
I
tried
stayed
krill,
away
but
from krill oil because krill is not kosher. And I'm Jewish, so I only take things that
oh,
are
okay,
have a kosher style kind of thing. So I
gotcha.
stay away from anything that's shellfish or
I've never tried it, but that's what I've read is that it's
mhm,
actually better than regular fish oil.
mhm. So probably because it just has a higher, it has the higher concentration.
Mm.
Maybe that's what it is. But I would have to research it. I stay away from things that aren't kosher.
Yeah,
Um,
but just going back to your main question about why I started, I mean, I have interest in many different fields too. Like I have an interest in what you do, Doc, and I don't think I'm ever going to be a doctor, and that could change. It's such a commitment, but I love learning from academics like yourself and Doc McCarran and Doc Cooey as well. And not only that, but my first interview was with an author who was an ex-con in the United States. He's from England, but he just writes about his stories and his experience in prison, and they're just mind blowing. So he was my first interview, and I actually got to interview him in London, which was awesome. But yeah, just that avenue, I think, of talking to people and podcasting like this or video conferencing, it allows you to talk to people that I wouldn't have been able to talk to otherwise. Because say I was in your institution, Doc, uh, I probably wouldn't feel that comfortable just walking up and talking to you, because you would outrank me by that
mhm.
much or whatever. But yeah, it's different when somebody random on the email or on the internet just emails you and wants to chat.
Yeah, no, I like using this as a platform to reach out and try to communicate with people. I think you're right. On a campus scenario, situation, maybe they would be afraid to come up and talk. If they see you in the library or in the student hall or just roaming on campus.
Yeah. And I would
Yeah.
love to, we don't have to do this now, but I'd love to do a collaboration just talking to you about things you wish you knew before going to undergrad or grad school. Because
Hmm.
I do think that young people are interested in those
You
kinds of questions getting
you
answered.
know what would be cool is to do something like that and have and do walk around the Harvard campus and just do
Mm,
like a walk tour slash conversation. That'd be
yeah.
kind of cool actually
Yeah,
to
that
do.
would be dope. I've actually never
Yeah.
been there. I've never been to Boston, I don't think. I've been to Logan, but that doesn't count.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Boston is neat, but it's also starting to have some problems, especially in the Cambridge area. I mean, the crime is starting to go up, graffiti, that's that sort of thing. Same thing's kind of happening in New York. It's crime's going up. I don't know about Detroit because I haven't been there since the passing of my brother, so I'm not sure about that, about how the crime is
You mean just
there.
generally the last few years?
The last few years in Boston and in New York, the crime
Yeah.
has been going up.
Yeah, American cities are so different from European cities, aren't there? That's one reason don't I mean, it's not something that I'm trying to do necessarily is live in a big city at this point because of that, but I mean, it depends. So
I think for me, I probably will, once I finish medical school and go into residency, I don't think I'll be in New York anymore. I think I think my strategy is, okay, do my rotations in New York, right? And then once I'm done with that and I start applying for residency, I'm probably gonna be moving west. I'm not like not California west. I mean like somewhere
mhm.
in between, something a little bit more rural.
Back to
You
the
know,
Midwest, are you thinking, or
maybe I'm
yeah,
not sure, but I don't think it would be Detroit area. It might be a little bit more north in northern Michigan. I'm not sure. My kind of goal is actually to have a few acres, have, some nice land to farm,
mm,
have some livestock and be, a rural general surgeon or cardiothoracic surgeon. They don't have enough. There was a study that was done about 10 years ago, and they were predicting, right, and they predicted right, that there's not enough surgeons in rural America.
yeah,
They're all going to the big city, and they're underserved. So there is a huge need for surgeons. So that was kind of like the path that I was thinking, if I can get into a surgical residency. But it's way too early to know what my surgical path is. But
yeah.
my goal is to be in general surgery and then do a fellowship in CT, or what is called cardiothoracic.
That'd be cool, man. I hope you achieve that. And you should definitely keep everyone updated.
Well, I mean, the idea is that, if I don't get COVID, but and the whole idea is just like document the journey. That
Yeah.
I think my mezzanine out of COVID is, and I think everyone needs to start thinking this. Right now, everyone's in COVID, in COVID mode, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
either they're either going to get, they're either sick, or they're worried about getting sick, or they want to know what's going on. But they need to start thinking, well, what's after COVID, the mezzanine into normal life? What are they going to do? So for me, my transition will be just documenting my journey, going back to my roots in the channel, documenting the journey in medical school. And I'm thinking it's not to be cathartic at all, and just sometimes these channels, these MD student channels, they're showing themselves eating, showing themselves studying, showing themselves walking to class,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I don't want to do it that way. I want to like almost like open up the channel to like make it medical school for everybody, where it's like a topic that I'm learning, not all of it, but a topic that I'm learning that week or that day. And I
Hmm.
talk about it for like maybe a half an hour, and I'm like explaining it. So it's helping me reinforce the idea, but it's
Yeah.
also giving my subscribers a little window of what you learn in medical school, so everyone can learn. It's free. You just watch watch the
Yeah.
channel, and you can learn about how the
And
lung works, or how the
people
cart
thinking
works, or
about being a med student would know what it consists of then. At least they would
yeah,
have a small bit of an idea. And
yeah.
what do you think about the best way to learn something is to teach it? I think that's pretty true. What do you say, Doc?
Yeah, well, I'm going through what they call the medical school boot camp. It's for 1 month, and we have about 2 to 3 lectures a week, but we have assignments to do every day, and it's through Canvas. Canvas is
Yeah, I know
okay. So
Canvas. Yeah.
okay, so we have everything's through Canvas, and we have live lectures, but it's through Zoom. You know,
Mm. Mhm.
the link is in people that know Canvas. You can click the link and then you go into in a Zoom, and it's all live, and all the students are attending. And uh, so the last lecture was actually on infectious diseases, on HIV,
Oh
and the
wow,
history of HIV. The one previous was about diabetes, and the
it's
one
good
before
timing.
that, yeah, the one before that was glycolysis and metabolism. So it's trying to get the student to be just kind of like get their feet wet at the pace, what the
Yeah.
pace is. So it's interesting. I'm learning on that. So but in the course, in the boot camp course, it talks about you have to read it, you have to hear it, and you have to do it. So and the doing part is teaching, the teaching part.
Explaining, yeah.
Yeah, explaining it. Because if you can't really explain it, you'll notice that there's certain gaps in the knowledge that you have.
Right.
So
And that's a great way to find out what you don't know too, is to try to explain it, because then you can find those kinks.
Yeah, exactly. So many medical schools use this method, and they put them in little groups, or you can, create your own groups. But and it's part of the curriculum where you're in like groups of 6, and you're actually practicing presenting in your group about certain systems, some medical schools, they'll teach based on subject, like immunology or anatomy. There's other schools that do it like system based, where it's okay, we're going to talk about the heart and everything that's based on the heart. So you get anatomy, you get immunology, you get cardiology, you get like all the subjects. So it's like you slice all the subjects through organ based, or you slice all the subjects through subject matter. And then so there's just different ways to learn. Now for me, they're doing an organ based. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be kind of cool to
do you have a preference either way, as far as the school
well
thought?
Most of the thing is like most of my education has been subject based, not organ based, not so they like at Harvard and pre-med, you had to do your organic chemistry, and you had to do your the physiology and anatomy and cellular biology and cancer biology. Everything was subject based. It might be important to do at the pre-med level, but once you're like starting to like for example, perfect examples what we're seeing right now with COVID-19. There's a lot we don't know. Almost everybody on the planet doesn't know anything about COVID-19. But people like us, what we're doing is that we're getting bits and pieces of what we're asking a question, where do we find the answer, and we're making our conclusions and creating our hypothesis and testing them in real time. Right? So we're learning based on really a disease model, not subject matter. We're not learning virology and organic chemistry and then let's say biochemistry. We're learning bits and pieces of it all at the same time as we're asking the question.
Yeah.
Right. So how we're learning about COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 is that organ-based model or diseased model. I think it's probably, once you have a certain baseline, I think that's probably the right way to learn. Because I remember doing some of my postdoctoral work in artificial intelligence. You can do like, this is simplifying it, what I'm explaining, for the layman. For the professional ones that are into artificial intelligence, it may seem too rudimentary, but I'm dumbing it down for most people to understand. You can learn like 2 main ways. Tell the computer everything and just put everything in the database and hope that you have a fast enough computer to find the data. This is somewhat like what Watson was doing. Somewhat. Okay.
Yeah, that's like the big data model.
It's right. So then you can give it a problem, give it some basic information, and it's learning. And it's learning, like how we're doing with COVID, just getting pieces, and something that's true based on its search will then be stored in the database. And so it's more unassisted versus assisted learning, where you store all the knowledge in, and then it starts to learn from that. No, it starts from zero, and it just says, okay, who am I? Okay, you get that answer. Okay, it stores it in, what am I? Okay, it stores that answer. And eventually it'll collect enough information to start evolving thought. So That's sort of what we're doing with COVID-19.
Yeah, and it's great that we do have these networks and teams to do it. I don't know if you saw, I think you did see one video because we talked about it, I think on our first roundtable, Paul, with Dr. Cameron Kyle Seidel from New York.
Mm-hmm.
He was this guy that was saying that it's basically, as far as he can tell, non-RDS. And he was very flustered communicating that because everyone seems kind of set on classifying it as ARDS, but he is saying that he is seeing pulmonary edemas,
Mm-hmm.
or excuse me, evidence of that because of the fact that people are coming in with like pink froth coming out of their mouth. So I don't know, that combined with, and I mentioned this to you last night, Doc, when we were talking on the phone, this idea of using hyperbaric chambers, oxygen chambers, because, and this is something that I think everyone's starting to realize, is the ventilators they help you with mechanical and physical work, the lungs that is. They don't help with the actual saturation of the oxygen into the blood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that?
Well, as time goes on, the whole ARDS versus non-ARDS, let's say camps, I think are starting to blend. Okay, in time, let's say 0 to time 3, it was pretty much the ARDS camp. Intubate if you get tired out. They call them tired out. Once they get tired out, you have to intubate because they die if they don't.
Yeah.
All right, so there's definitely something going on with not getting enough oxygen. They're becoming hypoxic. All right,
Yeah.
so
They're
and
suffocating to death.
basically they're not getting enough. And if you don't get enough oxygen, other organs start failing.
Yeah.
You know, so then time 4 to 6. That's when Kyle Seidel came out and basically said, this is non-ARDS. I think right where we're at right now is that some patients, I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's some are ARDS and some are non-ARDS. And I think it depends on where you are in the disease progression here. Because if you have the disease and if it's not infecting the CD147 receptor on the red blood cells or the T cells, but you do have this fluid buildup because of the cytokine storm, you can assume that it's ARDS, assuming if their oxygen levels are going back up. If you're on intubation and oxygen levels continue to drop or not improving, then you can conclude that it's non-ARDS.
And he was actually making the point, and other doctors are too, postulating that it's actually making things worse for some patients.
Right. So, right, exactly. Now, here's the problem: is that 80 to 90% of the people that are intubated die.
Yeah.
That's the sad part about it. Now, what about the 20% or the 10%? Yeah. Are those ARDS?
Yeah, there's no comparison.
And 80% are non-ARDS. So I understand his point that what he's seeing, the far majority are probably non-ARDS. And he just had a recent video that came out that he has a whiteboard. Have you seen the whiteboard one?
I watched it twice actually.
Yeah. It's very informative. And basically what it's saying is that you can't get the oxygen exchange in the air sac. So the air sac will exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide, and that will bind onto the red blood cell and then carry that through to other tissues. Well, that mechanism is not happening. You got a lot of inflammation there. You have the lining of the capillaries around this air sac is breaking down. We do know that the lining of these capillaries have ACE2.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So we've been saying early on that there are other tissues that get infected. So you have blood vessels that are infected. You have the AT2 cell within the air sac that gets infected. You have this accumulation of fluid because of the immune response, the cytokines. The immune system is kicking in, so people can't breathe because there's fluid there. But you also have destruction of the air sac. The air sacs are dying, and this leads to the fibrotic issue. Now, he doesn't mention in his videos that he's saying, from a clinical point of view, he's seeing the hypoxia, but he doesn't mention why. He doesn't mention why, and I think the mechanism of why he's seeing the hypoxia is that the red blood cells and the T cells, but specifically the red blood cells in this case, are infected, and the heme group is somewhat altered. Now the question is, what's altering it? Is it just an overall inflammatory response that's altering the heme group so it doesn't have the attachment to the oxygen very well? All it has to do is just slightly change. Or is it that when you have things go wrong in your cell, the proteases that are in it, we have lots of different enzymes, but if it's infected, maybe there is something going wrong with the normal cleaving when it makes the heme group, when it's making the protein, the hemoglobin. All right, is there something going wrong with the assembly of it? So it could be that something's missing, or something's added. It could be a phosphorylation that's taking place on the group, or it could be
what's a phosphorylation?
All right, so like, for example, like some enzymes. So in biochemistry, there's lots of different pathways, but it's signaling. So a receptor is normally what happens is that some sort of signal comes into the receptor, and that receptor will have a piece of the protein into the cytoplasm, and it will be able to do signaling for other things. Okay, that signaling pathway there's lots of ways of doing it, but one way is a phosphorylation. So it takes what is called you have an enzyme that has a phosphate group on it, and it will give another protein that phosphate that activates it. So you have these proteins that are all downstream, all right, and they're kinases. That's what they're called. The kinases provide the phosphate group. So if it gets a signal, it activates, and it wants to give a phosphate to something. All right, it activates a kinase. So you got this kinase that's floating around with a phosphate group on it. You have your receptor. Some sort of chemical signal comes in. All right, it activates, and this knows that activation. It locks in. Okay,
so it could be docking via giving away its phosphorus, is what you're saying as well.
Well, sort of. So you have. Let me try to re-explain it. Okay, you have the receptor. You have a chemical come in or something hit the receptor, and there are different amino acids. All right, on the chain going in from that receptor that will activate a kinase. That kinase has a phosphate group on it. Once it's activated and other proteins are next to it, it will transfer that phosphate to activate those other proteins that are next to it. Okay? Those proteins would not work unless they were phosphorylated. Now, to add complication, some proteins are activated by phosphorylating, some are activated by dephosphorylating. So we have enzymes that can dephosphorylate and phosphorylate. Okay, but let's just keep it simple and just say that this pathway is a phosphorylation pathway, but there's feedback loops that dephosphorylate and phosphorylate, so it doesn't run out of control. But it could be that this heme issue is the folding of the hemoglobin improperly, or it could be some sort of phosphorylation that's taking place upstream that leads to an incorrect heme group. It changes the shape, the topology, the three-dimensional structure of the heme, and just enough where it can't attach the oxygen group.
Yeah.
So, it might be where they need to do protease inhibitors to slow down the viral infection in the red blood cell, then give them medication that upregulates red blood cells. They've done this, during the Tour de France. The Tour de France.
Yeah, blood
where
doping,
you can
right?
dope. Yeah, but why did they blood dope? To get more oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you need. You need to blood
Higher
dope these
oxygen
patients.
saturation.
Yeah, you need it. Yeah, you need to blood dope these patients. I think part of the answer is what Lance Armstrong did.
Yeah. Do you think that combined with the hyperbaric chambers could be the answer, or what do you think? Do you think one is better than the other?
I don't think the hyperbaric. Unless the data shows it. I don't know. Has anyone done this? And it said
I haven't seen anything. Okay. I just
seen. Here's the way. If you change the pressure, you can change on how much gas can be dissolved in a liquid. All right. So the idea is that it's a pressure issue, and Dr. Kyle Siddell didn't say that. He said it's similar, and he even mentions it in the second video with the whiteboard. He says it's similar, but if you're changing pressures, to get different oxygen saturations, that would be because of altitude issues.
Yeah, altitude sickness.
So that's not what they're having here. So I don't think it would work. The hyperbaric chamber would not work. At least I don't think so, because you have many cases that are at sea level. So, but it's similar. Just because it's similar doesn't mean that the remedy is altitude, sickness.
Same.
Yeah. So I would think that it's more you need to increase your red blood cells and protease inhibit to reduce the viral load, because whatever red blood cells that you do create, you don't want those infected. So somehow you have to at least slow down the infection, because if you give them new red blood cells, it's possible that you just keep on spreading the infection within the body. You speed up death.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. So I'm thinking that it something is happening to the shape of the heme group to not allow for the oxygen to bind to it. And that is why what he's seeing is he's saying, there's the oxygen transfer isn't happening, but the carbon dioxide is. So
he called, he said it was another possibility too, was a shunt.
Right.
So going from right to left without the oxygen in the blood, right?
Right. I'd have to watch the video. I only watched the video once. He was talking about the shunt a little bit. I'd have to research a little bit more on that.
Oh, what am I doing here? Okay, there we go. I didn't know I could share a screen. I've never done this before, actually, via Skype. That's cool.
See, I'm not sure if he's talking about when the artery is artery, the term artery is away from the heart. All right.
Okay.
And vein or the
Towards
venous
the heart.
system is towards the heart. So you have a pulmonary artery coming from your right ventricle going into your lungs to be oxygenated. Then that oxygenated blood is going back in to the right atrium, or I'm sorry, the left atrium, and then pumped out through the left ventricle through your aorta. So I'm not sure if when he uses the term shunt, if he's talking about when he says shunt in the video, is he saying that they're equal? Oh, they're not equal.
What does he say? He said, so he was saying that
Is he saying that the
it could
oxygen
be
from
one or two possibilities, a shunt, or what was the first one? Oh, he was just talking about the ratio they take of oxygen saturation in the blood to oxygen given.
Okay, so you measure, if I understand you right, that you're measuring what's coming in. You know that concentration of oxygen, and then you can take you can do a blood reading and then see what is the efficiency of the lungs to transfer that into the blood. And it might not be the lung, it may be the inability for the red blood cell to take the oxygen, which is my point, that I think that the CD147 infection in the red blood cell is preventing the oxygen from binding.
Yeah.
But I thought that there was also that is a term that he uses V over O.
Yeah, I think it's V over O.
Yeah. So now the shunt, though, I think is more pulmonary artery versus
V over Q. Yeah. But the shunt is
V over
different.
Q.
But the V over Q is as he or the ratio, excuse me. I'm sorry, P over F. P over F ratio was what he is used to define.
But and this is something that I didn't know either. It's not an actual description of what's going on in the lungs itself. It's just a description of symptoms, basically, as far as I can tell. So it's a ratio, and he said it's supposed to be 1 to 2. So, for example, if you're given 100% oxygen, but only 50% is being absorbed, that checks that box. Bilateral infiltrates is. And then he was saying for the third one that no RDS is explained by heart issues. So in his eyes, he doesn't think it's ARDS. But I agree with you, Paul, as far as I can tell. Obviously, I'm not on the front lines, but it does seem a very individualistic problem depending on so many variables and so many factors.
It is individualistic because you have COVID-19 patients that have the neurological issue but don't have the pulmonary. You have COVID-19 patients that have intestinal issues and don't have the pulmonary problem. So, how do you treat those? So that's what I'm saying is this non-ARDS may be actually near the end stage of this disease progression.
Yeah.
Well, you may have early on, and maybe an ARDS situation. Or, how do you explain the cases where they don't even need intubation?
Yeah.
But they're definitely sick, but they have the pneumonia, and I've seen the CT scans. You've seen them. I mean, they have the pneumonia, but they don't need the intubation. So what are they? Are they non-ARDS? I mean, so I don't think it's really clear on how to classify these different cohorts. I think that's the problem. Is that it's not a cookie cutter issue here, and there's multiple pathways this thing is infected.
The immune people should be tested more. I think that they should be tested more and studied more, don't you, as to why these people are carrying it or not getting sick at all.
If you're testing more for like an antibody or for to see if they're
Yeah,
are you
just
talking about an RT? Are you talking about an antibody test, or are you talking about the RT PCR?
it could be an antibody test, but just identifying asymptomatic carriers and studying as to why they are not showing any symptoms, because I think that could answer a lot of questions. Maybe there's a common denominator that they share.
Well, I think you're right. The more people we test, the better resolution of what exactly is happening. Because if we may find that the conclusions from the Chinese were right, that it truly is type A versus type O blood.
Mm-hmm.
Type A gets higher incidence, but but we're basing it on a Chinese study. We don't know if that's true or not. And it might be something very specific to the Asian population. But we have enough different different ethnicities in the United States that if you just do a massive testing and have a really good database to understand what's going on, you could see, well, you know what? It is type A for this and this ethnic group, but it's type B for this and this ethnic group. So we don't know that. And that's a big signal, because different blood types will have different antigens. That's why certain people can't get certain blood, because your antibodies will fight the donation, the blood donation. So there may be something, and I've said this a little while back, that those antigens may be carriers that hold the virus. We call them protein. There's protein carriers, so you can have a protein floating around in the body. Okay, and
Just
sometimes
a quick recap question. So an antigen is present after the virus has been defeated in somebody's body, correct?
no, the antigen is if you're looking at it from the point of view of antibodies, the antigen is what the antibody is trying to attach. The antibody is what the immune system makes. The
Right.
antigen in this case that we're talking about is the pathogen, the S spike protein. Okay. All right. So, but we have antigens are just the antithesis of an antibody.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
The mace ball that is the corona.
Yeah. So we have these antigens also on our cells, but they're for signaling. For signaling or for attachment or whatever, to communicate. There's lots of different reasons why. But these red blood cells, certain red blood cells will have certain types of antigens. Well, they could be carriers. They could attach things and carry them around. So we have carrier proteins that are in the blood that need a carrier to have them transport, or a hormone that has to be attached to a polypeptide or a protein to carry it. And then there is an enzyme that breaks the carrier connection, and then the hormone can get in. Or some other, but this is how the body communicates naturally. So it's possible that there's something on the red blood cell that is a carrier for the virus, and then because it's holding it, instead of just that virus floating around by the red blood cell, but if it attaches, then it has a higher possibility that if it finds a CD147 receptor, it gets in and then starts to infect the red blood cell. So it could be that those antigens on the type A blood type could be that affinity carrier that I'm talking about it could be higher than any other
Yeah.
group, and then it gives you the more probability that it's next to a CD147 receptor or something else, and it'll go into the cell. So I still am following the line of thought that what's causing the non-ARDS is the red blood cells being infected through the CD147 pathway.
Yeah. Did you see Fauci on the news this morning at all?
I didn't see him
Yeah.
on the news recently, but I did see a couple YouTube videos about Fauci, saying that he's been asked by journalists saying, were you writing checks to Wuhan Institute, for research?
Him if it was man-made too, the virus.
Yeah. And he couldn't name the paper, but the paper that he's referring to was the paper that I spent 2.5 hours debunking live. I was
he also didn't answer the question either.
Yeah, right. But I was so confident about it. It's a cover-up. This thing is a cover-up, and I'll tell you why it's a cover-up. There was research development for weapons in the United States. You know the story. At Fort Detrick, in collaboration with North Carolina, with Dr. Xi. The program is turned off by Obama. Fauci is completely involved in this, and it gets transferred over to other labs. One of the labs is the Wuhan Institute, which is where the P4 lab is. All right. And Fauci writes checks to different research centers to understand the gain of function that we weren't going to do in the United States. So it was kind of like waterboarding, if you want to use it that way. Remember, we couldn't do waterboarding here, but we could do waterboarding in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, but
so
also the waterboarding was being done by a foreign state, not by us. So it's even worse.
But that's true. But we were funding it.
Yeah,
we paid them to do it. That's the key. And Fauci has his signature on the check. That's the point.
That's like giving your enemy all the weapons or the keys to your house.
It's if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, they were doing this for at least 25 years to the United States to gut the manufacturing in so many different industries. For me, it was automotive when I was an automotive engineer, but it also happened in pharmaceuticals. We do still have a pretty big pharmaceutical industry, but New Jersey is a shell now compared to where it used to be.
Yeah, China
used to be.
Most of our pills,
but
I think.
but a lot of that stuff was made in New Jersey. With the pharmaceutical companies there. So we have been seeing the shelling out of America, all right, and this technology transfer primarily to China and India. Now, India is a little bit more geopolitically aligned with us.
Yeah, they also have
China is not. Yeah, China is not geopolitically aligned to us. So
they're not aligned with anyone geopolitically except themselves.
Right. So you step back and forget about the science side of it, and you wonder, well, why and who are orchestrating this gutting of America? One is they benefit financially because they know who where to put the money, because they're going to be the ones. Well, like for example, why is Fauci pushing Moderna versus directed bios?
Can you want to explain that, Paul? Moderna versus directed bios?
All right. Directed bios is the one that's saying that they can create a vaccine that's antibody vaccine, where they just give you antibodies, versus the messenger RNA, where your body has to produce the antibodies, and they can Trojan horse a reverse transcriptase or do something else.
Yeah, or anything.
Right. So why is he pushing that? Or why did Fauci not really put the positive light on hydroxychloroquine? I mean, there is some benefit of hydroxychloroquine with Z-Pak and the zinc.
And the asymmetric
Because he was
risk
putting all of
too
his, because he was,
so large. It's like if you're maybe a couple hours from dying, like you're gonna take anything. You're gonna try anything. So yeah, it
So
makes
what-
no sense why you would do that.
so he's on the take. He knows when the Fort Detrick shut down the weapons program and they started transferring it over for further development at P4. They also provided information to other tech companies, biotech companies. So we've had SARS for a long time. They couldn't come up with a vaccine. Then all of a sudden, on record timing, they come up with a vaccine? No. They had pieces of this since 2014, maybe even longer, that these companies had, and they were like going, oh, well, maybe something's going to happen here, and they started
the original
developing.
SARS was what, 03, right?
I don't know probably that's probably right.
I think it was 02 or 03.
Yeah. So, they still don't have a vaccine for that. And the replicase is better for SARS than for, let's say, influenza. So if they say, well, it's the same problem as influenza, we can't, it mutates too much. No, that's not true. It will mutate, but it's not going to mutate as much, because the replicase has more efficiency. But it takes a long time to develop vaccines. Long time. So it almost seems to me that we have to follow the money. Who are the CEOs? Who are the researchers? And and which hedge fund companies started putting in options right after or around the time of Event 201? Because I still believe Event 201 was forward operation signal. And those people would have started buying options in these companies that are going to be testing this stuff. Okay. Now, no one knew about Wuhan back then, or they shouldn't have.
I mean,
right?
yeah,
right.
I don't know about no one.
So it would be very curious to understand, was there an uptick in option activity with the C-suite in these companies or the hedge funds, where they got the wink from
similar to 9/11.
From Event 2. Yep, exactly. And by law, they have to file a K report. I think it's a K10 or 10K. I think it is. It's been a while. So I think it's a 10K report. Maybe it's a 5K, but I think it's 10K. But in that report, it states that they bought X amount of shares of different companies or their company, and that's public record. So people could go to these different companies, go on their website, download their 10K or a similar document, and look down at who's in the C-suite that has to file, and see, did they purchase more stock or options in their company?
Do you think this ties
what date they did it
to 7E, as it were? I mean,
E7. E7.
Yeah, what are you calling it now?
E7. It's E7. Yeah. So is it tied to E7?
Or do you think this is being blown out of proportion?
See, you have to parse it. The ones that say that that E7 is creating the virus, no, that's not true. The ones that like the Kaufmans, that or
Did he actually say that? Dr. Kaufman did?
Well, he's basically saying that E7 is causing a increase in exosomes, and that the exosomes are the virus. That's where he landed, because he doesn't believe in germ theory. So
one of those.
So it's an easy test. You have people that are exposed to E7. It's a really easy test. You expose people with no E7, no exposure as a control group. You expose with E7, and measure their measure
Their viral load, right?
their viral load. Then you expose someone with no E7, but you give them SARS-CoV-2 in a vial, and then you expose them with E7, wait a little bit, maybe 14 days or whatever, and then expose them to SARS-CoV-2. And I think what you would see in this test is obviously the control, no E7 and no CoV-2, you're not going to get
Nothing's gonna
SARS.
happen.
E7, you're not going to have CoV-2, SARS-CoV-2. The E7 with CoV-2, I think would be a very interesting case, because I believe that electromagnetic radiation does cause inflammation for some people, and it depends on the frequency of the exposure and the intensity of the exposure. So we do know this is fact that electromagnetic radiation will create ROS, reactive oxygen species. It's why we take antioxidants to quell that ROS, to reduce that inflammation, because what that will do is that it will add to aging. It will create apoptosis. We will get older quicker. All right.
So it'd be safe to say you are not for 7E, E7.
E7. I'm not for E7, but I do think that I'm not for it for two reasons. One, I don't like the idea of electromagnetic radiation affecting my health by creating a pro-inflammatory response, because you can measure it in your blood and you'll get more NF kappa, and NF kappa, when you have enough of it, will lead to diseases.
Do you test your own blood, Doc?
No. But I could. I mean, but no. Now, you can get these like little machines that like on Amazon and stuff that
I know
will test your blood.
Extra, it's called, which people use to measure their ketones, millimolars of ketones.
Right.
If you want to go into ketosis.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I don't. I understand the ketosis thing, and you got to worry about getting too acidic, because if you go into ketosis, you're not going through the TCA cycle. You're creating a lot of lactate that'll bring up it'll increase your acidity in your blood.
Yeah. I know it's dangerous to attempt to go into ketosis but fail, because it's like a binary thing where like you have to make sure you're not eating too many carbs, or your brain will, or your body is not going to be able to make use of ketones as energy. And I've read that even on the avocado can put people out of ketosis depending on their body and makeup. But I guess I was just asking the blood testing question, because it seems to me it would be golden in a situation like this for people to have extensive knowledge about their blood and to get their blood tested regularly to get those blood markers. But I just don't understand why we can't do that.
Well, the thing is, there's so much in your blood. Yeah, and depending on, it's very transitory too. That's why they're always doing blood work if you're in the hospital, to understand, if your communication between your different organs are right. I mean, they're measuring tons of stuff in your blood. I mean, and there's tons of stuff that they don't know what to look for. I mean, there's lots in our blood, a lot of proteins that are unknown because they're in micro concentrations, versus macro concentrations. But back to E7, there's a lot of, and that's a field in itself, studying that.
Back to E7.
Yeah, E7. So my stance on it is that I don't like the pro-inflammatory issue with electromagnetic radiation, but I'm even more concerned about the civil liberties issue. You cannot. The way E7 works, if it was fully implemented, is you cannot opt out. With 4G, you can opt out. You could just turn off your phone, just not use it. Once E7 is fully implemented and you have truly the Internet of Things, and everywhere, all devices you have are connected, all devices that you're using have a camera on it, everywhere you go outside your house is surveilled, you will never ever opt out. You can't.
Oh yeah,
And that's why I am totally against it. Is that you're not in a situation where you're giving consent.
And as I understand it too, it's not like 4G in that you can set up these towers, one big tower every, I don't even know how long it is, but I guess for 5G now, and I don't know if you know anything about this, Paul, they have to set them up more frequently, but in greater numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's right. That's right. But what it is a pennant
between like AC versus DC current back in the day. Like having many kind of hubs for current as opposed to what actually won, which was AC or Tesla. It reminds me of that. Just the makeup and the spread of the energy of less bigger hubs of energy versus
I'd use it. I use the analogy AM versus FM radio.
Okay.
AM you get actually a larger
larger waves, right? Yeah. Whereas like FM's like
so I think it's a little bit close. The analogy is a little bit closer to AM and FM radio.
No, no doubt. I mean, I don't even know if it's an analogy because you're literally talking about waves, EM waves too, right? And that's when I asked my physics teacher in high school, I actually emailed him last week and talked to him about this. And he basically said that you can kind of see it as a meter for danger with, gamma rays being the worst and 5G being further down that spectrum of wavelengths. He also went on to say further that it has been shown long-term to have cancerous effects and leukemia, just in case anybody was wondering about that. But that's all he said on it. And he's really a guy who's quite apolitical and really smart. So that's all I can say definitively right now that I know about.
And it falls right in line with the ROS. It creates a more oxidation in your cells and causes things to go wrong. Now, if you have enough things go wrong, we have these checkpoints in the cell to prevent it from going into cancer. But if you have enough things going wrong, the checkpoints don't work anymore, and it will start to divide. So if you have enough inflammation or enough oxygen species, what will happen is that you'll have a tumor start to grow. And once it starts to grow, then all these new cells will start to create. Each one of those cancer cells has kind of a new genome. There's lots of things that are going on, especially if it's a rapid tumor. So if you take a tissue sample and you look at 10 different cells within that tumor, you may find 5 or 6 different types of genomes, because your chromosomes are breaking at all these different spots and gluing together in another chromosome. So it's like creating this like really strange chimeric kind of thing, in each one of these tumors. So it's dangerous. I mean, so again, it's about the intensity. The intensity is like gamma. That's really intense. You don't have to have much of it, and you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a measure of intensity and duration.
Yeah. And what do you think about David Icke? Have you seen that his interview got taken down, Paul, last week?
With London Real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm for freedom of speech. I mean, definitely for freedom of speech. It shouldn't have been taken down. But I also think that London Real and David Icke were using it as a way to get attention. but it backfired because, London Real, I find that London Real, he rubs me kind of the wrong way. There's something about him that just doesn't jive. He's very promotional. He's very, he seems like a con man. Like a broker.
I watched him years ago, bro. It's like, what was that? It must have been 2014 now, or I think it was 2014. And he actually had a partner on his show. And I much preferred his show when it was him and this other guy. And when it switched to just him, I didn't like it. It was he got a lot more formal and started wearing the suit. And I really liked the informal, like they did something like this, and he had this great interview with Robert Greene. It's one of my favorite Robert Greene interviews, and I would highly recommend people go check that out. But yeah, he did change his style as he got bigger and bigger and more popular. Because, dude, I followed him when he had not very many people following him at all. And I was mind blown because I was like, man, he has all these great interviews with, like he had Hodge Gracie, this MMA guy. He's arguably the greatest jiu-jitsu artist of all time. Robert Greene, my favorite author, and he only had like a few thousand followers. And I was like, dang, why don't people? But now, and this kind of ties back to what we were talking earlier about the podcast. They just keep getting bigger, this audio space, And I do think it's cool. But yeah, just tying back to what you said about Brian Rose and London Real, he has gotten a little more kind of surfacey, I guess, in like businessman-y promo guy type of thing, where it's like, I don't know.
I view
like that from the start, kind of thing. I
view people when they're in a dangerous situation. How do they react? That's how I judge people.
Yeah.
And he states in his documentary, that he had substance abuse problems. Okay, I can understand that. People have had substance abuse problems and got their act together, and that's something to commend.
Yeah.
But he was in New York. Let's backtrack. He does an undergrad at MIT, so he's a smart guy. He's not a dumb guy, and I think he had all A's, so that's even crazier. But I mean, but the thing is that he's a smart guy. I'm not putting him down on that. But he never was an engineer. He got an engineering degree, but he never was an engineer like I was. Like
I didn't even know that he went to MIT.
Yeah, but he never was a practicing engineer. So
he was a finance guy, wasn't he?
Right. That's the point that I mean. I'm painting a story about it.
Okay.
So he goes to MIT, he's smart. I'm not saying he's not, but he doesn't practice engineering like a lot of people in Detroit. Actually built something.
Engineering.
Or worked at NASA and designed rockets or something. So he didn't do anything like that. So what he did was he cashed in. Okay, so let's put that on the monetary side, of his personality. So he goes to New York to be a broker, all right, or to work in the in banking, all right. He wasn't doing very well, all right. And somehow he had some side business that was dealing with real estate also. So a lot of these brokers, what they do is they do real estate on the side. They're doing some, IB stuff, and they're trying to make it big. That they're, and you can imagine with his personality right now, what kind of attitude he had as a broker, or an IB guy, investment banking type, in New York City. All right, in the 90s. You can just imagine this, all right? So this is where he gets in his substance abuse issue, all right? Then fast forward to 9/11. He's in New York. He has substance abuse issues, and he gets on his according to his documentary, he gets on to the rooftop of his building. It might be in Tribeca. I'm not positive. But he can see down to the
Twin Towers.
The Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, and he said that he saw them go down, and he was drinking whiskey while it was going down. And I'll tell you what, that's a fucking asshole. That is a fucking asshole. Because if I wasn't in New York when that happened, I was technically I was living in South Korea, but you know, when 9/11 happened. But you know, I'll tell you what, if I was in New York, the very first thing I would do was be going down to help people. That's just my personality. And I think anyone that listens to my channel kind of knows my personality. And so when London Real thinks that he's doing, you know, the you know, real good work and for mankind, you know, by having David Icke, you know, talking about E7, you know, and how it's disrupting people's endocrine systems or whatever. He's all show. He's all show, because when push came to shove, he wasn't there for people during 9/11.
So, he said that on his documentary.
Yes, yes. This is the documentary he's talking about. He's training for a triathlon.
If I did that, I would never tell anybody that.
I don't know. He's a fucking asshole. And I'll tell you what, I would love to interview him and say, why didn't you go down to ground zero and help people?
Well, instead of people changing and giving people, I think second chances is important, because we do live in a cancel culture. But yeah, man, I don't know and that's great that he beat his addiction, which hopefully he's not still struggling with it. But yeah, man, if I did that, I would not tell anyone.
In the documentary, he's talking about his financial problems, and he was so worried that it was going to hurt his business.
Yeah. Well, that's him being vulnerable too, you know, and showing that fault, which I think credit to him for that. But yeah,
but the thing is that you got to look at the whole picture. Smart guy, MIT, all A's, doesn't use the engineering degree, goes into finance thinking he's going to make it big, can't, because he realizes that it's about behavior and it's not about engineering. Trading is about behavior. It's behavioral finance. It's all about, you know, understanding, you know, PSYOP games in the trading world. All right. You know, everyone's looking one way and you have to look the other way. You have to always think the opposite. It's not like engineering where it's like A plus B equals C. That's not trading. Yeah. So these engineers that come out of MIT, they do terrible usually in finance.
I didn't know that was a trend for MIT engineers to do that.
Well, no, it's very big, because what happens is they try to get them out. They're really good in the mathematics, and that you know, and they try to build up these quant systems. But almost every quant fund blows up because it's running on a mathematical model that the market really doesn't run on. It may run on it for a certain duration, and something happens. So the best way to handle the market is just use behavioral finance theory. So there's a lot of research on that. All right. But he's one of those ones that thinks that he can really think about the market, how it's going to, you know, how it's going to really trade. Yeah, bullshit. So, you know, so there's this bigger picture to understand him. You have to look at. So he really thinks highly of himself in the middle of a crisis. And then another thing is that once things got tough for him, fast forward to Lehman. All right. So he's still in New York. All right. Something happens during Lehman, and I think he loses his job. Then he calls a friend that's in London to help him get into IB in London. That's when he leaves New York. So he ran away. He wasn't, you know, I keep on stating on some of my videos on my channel, there's two types of New York. What creates a New Yorker? You don't have to be born in New York.
You just have to be a New Yorker a year, right?
Right. No. So like most people think you have to live there for 10 years, or some people say that you have to live there for a year. No. You can be a New Yorker in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. In 30 seconds, because all you have to do is realize that it's tough, but you're going to persevere and stay. You could be born a New Yorker, and you don't have you have some sort of thing that happens in your life, and you go run away. Well, no, you were born a New Yorker, but you ran away, so you're no longer a New Yorker. You stay a New York. You stay a New Yorker by persevering. So Lehman happens, and he ends up in London. How I understand the story is that he ends up in London now. And then he's doing that for a little while, and then all of a sudden he starts London Real. So I'm seeing the bigger picture. Smart guy, never used his engineering degree, thinks that he was going to make it big in finance, was terrible at it, not only in New York, but also in London. When push came to shove and people needed his help, he didn't help. 9/11, aka 9/11.
Yeah.
And
you've been following him for a minute, Paul? How do you know all this about him? Just because of his documentary?
I was watching his documentary about triathlons. He was training for a triathlon, so that was because I was doing triathlon. I'm familiar with triathlons. I just thought it would be an interesting documentary, and he started telling about his life. So it was like he was training for this triathlon, but it was also therapeutic of him omitting some of the things that he did in his life to his wife that she never knew about. So it was a very good documentary. It's a great documentary. But the thing is that it shines a light on what his real personality is. He's a schmuck. My grandmother would say he's a schmuck. I don't care if he, so that's I mean,
Midwestern word right there.
So he knows how to manipulate. He knows how to market. I think the whole David Icke thing was both of them were being media whores. David Icke probably wanted to get more.
What he said, David Icke, because I've seen some of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing. And
see, it's like 2 hours long. I thought.
Yeah.
I have only seen just bits and pieces. So I'm taking it out of context, and that's not fair. But what I've heard was that there is a quote conspiracy, which I agree with, that E7 is being used to control us and erode our civil liberties. He's right on that, 100% right on that. And he's saying that there are institutions that's hiding the effects of E7 on the body. He's 100% right on that too. Where he goes wrong is when he starts talking about viruses don't exist, and he's starting to promote this Kaufman theory.
Oh wow, I didn't know he was doing that.
Yeah. So I mean, and saying that the RT-PCR test is bogus, that it's not testing for SARS-CoV-2. And everyone that says this, I asked them, what's the FAM sequence that they're using to probe to know? And if someone's saying, if they can't tell you that how many locations on the genome that they're testing for, and what the FAM sequence probe is for the PCR, then they're talking bullshit, because they don't know what they're talking. You have to have a 24 nucleotide FAM sequence to lock in for that to know if you have the right genome. All right, and they're saying, well, that when they're doing the PCR, they're testing for only COVID. They're only testing for regular coronavirus, not SARS-CoV-2. Well, no, they're testing the S spike protein and the envelope protein and other areas on the genome, and they're doing like 2 or 3 areas of the genome. Well, what's the probability of randomly getting a FAM sequence on a genome for regular coronavirus when you're doing this 2 or 3 areas, like really small, and it has to lock in completely? It's a 24 nucleotide sequence, so it can't be that's for it to be random. It's 1 divided by 4 to the 24th power.
Could you send me the genome website, Paul? Because someone actually requested this on my channel too. They were wondering if they could look at the genome, because I do think some people have an interest in looking at the structure of it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But also on the CDC website, it has the protocols and what the test kit number is. So there's different protocols where they'll tell you what the primer is, what is called the forward primer and the reverse primer. So you have this sequence, and you have a primer that comes on, and that codes this way, and then you have another primer, the reverse primer, that codes this way. All right, and in between is the FAM sequence, the 24 nucleotide FAM sequence that's fluorescent. Well, that fluorescence, as the forward primer, or as the primer gets closer to it, it will break off and let it fluoresce. All right. When it does that, that's how you know that you got the right sequence. All right. And you do this 2 or 3 times in different areas of the genome, in the areas that we're talking about that have been bioengineered. And I have went to the CDC website and I've looked at the FAM sequence. All right. And they're in those areas. So when someone says that they're testing for regular coronavirus, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because all you got to do is say, what's the FAM sequence, and look at it in the genome, and you'll notice that it's in the area that we keep on saying that was bioengineered. So Ike doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. All you got to do is just go to the CDC website and look at, they give you the code.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is really dangerous is for people to, if they find one thing that they disagree with someone on, is they discredit everything that person is saying, which I'm not saying you're doing that, but it makes finding the truth that much more difficult, because David Icke could be saying 80% truth.
Well, he's saying he is saying 80% truth, because he's right about E7 taking away your civil liberties, and they're hiding research on how E7 affects your body. That's complete. He's completely right on that. But when he starts talking that germ theory doesn't exist, and
that's crazy to me. Not only him, but Dr. Young too. We had a Dr. Robert Young on the coronavirus roundtable. I think it was not this yesterday, but last week, and likewise, he doesn't believe in germ theory. So there's germ theory and then environment theory, correct?
I think Dr. Karen said terrestrial theory. He calls it terrestrial theory, which is a strange name. It's a strange name to use, but I would say I would use the term environmental theory.
Yeah, I don't know if that's right,
but it's terrestrial. He called it terrestrial theory versus germ theory.
Okay, yeah. So germ theory versus terrain theory.
Or terrain theory. Yeah, that's right. Terrain theory.
It bothers me because I can't remember her name, but I took a microbiome class in high school, and that's one of the first things we learned was basically those two schools of thought was germ theory versus terrain theory, and the fact that germ theory is what exists in the universe.
Right. I mean, it's very easy to debunk Young and Kaufman. You can take a healthy person, and you can take it, because they're saying that it's really you're infected. You're infected because your system is down and is producing its exosomes. Something is producing an exosome, and that's what's causing the infection. They're mixing apples and oranges here. All right. You're sick, and you do excrete or exocytose exosomes, but those exosomes are those are part of the way the cytokines are released. Then when we talk about cytokines, that's part of the mechanism. These cells,
the immune response,
they make cytokines, and they have to exocytose out, and they use these Golgi. I use the term Golgi vesicles, but Kaufman uses MVBs, but the same thing. The bottom line is that these cells, certain cells, immune cells, will produce cytokines, and they will use these exosomes to create the pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory response. So they're right about that, all right? But you can have a completely homeostasis individual that's completely healthy, and you give them a virus, and they will get it. So right there kills the theory.
Yeah.
Right? And then not only that, you can see the viruses in an electron microscope.
Do you think these guys are crisis actors? Because it's that moronic. Is it not?
Well, I don't know about Young and his background, but Kaufman's MIT, and I think he's undergrad at MIT. Where he went for his MD, I'm not sure, but it's in psychiatry. So he's, it's not internal medicine. It's not a surgeon. It's not oncology. It's not,
it's drug dealing.
So I mean, on the spectrum, a psychic is closer to a psychiatrist than, let's say, an internal medicine doctor. But I'm just shocked on how could you graduate from medical school thinking that germ theory doesn't exist, because you're studying so much. Yeah, you're studying so much about pathogens.
It's like they're trolling, like they're trying to be trolls.
I don't know about Young, but I get that feeling about Kaufman. I feel as though he is to try to plant a seed in the flat earther community that the virus doesn't exist, and therefore, to create division within the truther community. Because in essence, we are in a truther community. I don't even like the term truther, but the idea.
We all are, aren't we? We're all trying to find the truth, and we can't. And like you said, we're just getting more polarized.
Yeah, but there's one of the characteristics of the quote the truthers is they stay away from mainstream media, and they're more in the underground or alternative media. Yeah. Well, I mean, that, and even our channels fit in this category. I know people. I know people that say they won't listen to mainstream, but they'll listen to you or I or Atwood or other channels to get their information.
There's a demand for it, definitely.
Yeah.
Because people they don't trust anything that they say.
Well, it's a combination. It's one. A lot of these channels that are popping up like ours, there's authenticity to it. It's not sound bites. It's not like 30-second sound bite and then a commercial.
Yeah.
And we have a conversation that can go as long as we want it to go. If on a topic, if we want it. Yeah. And and you can have these panels and round tables. It's closer to the Oxford model of presenting information.
Yeah.
Than this, American mainstream media 30-second,
fast food version.
Because you can't. I could never do, let's say, Fox News or CNN, because I talk too damn long.
Yeah,
there's no way I could condense what I want to say
in
just get one sentence. Yeah, I would just keep on babbling, and because what they want to hear, like, is David Icke bad or good? And the way I answer it is just neither. There's a lot of things that he said is really good. I like David Icke. I even mentioned that, in my video. But when it comes to saying that viruses don't exist and the RT-PCR isn't working, he's 100% wrong on that. So so it's not binary, and the problem with mainstream is it's very binary. They want to divide us.
Divide and conquer.
So that's why I think Kaufman is trying to. They realize that mainstream isn't doing it because we're not listening to mainstream. A lot of the people that are listening to this underground thing that's happening. Mm-hmm. So what do? They get people like Dr. Kaufman to infiltrate, get them on a channel talking about crazy stuff, and then you'll divide part of the community. You'll have this one side, saying viruses don't exist, and you have another side proving that they do exist, but they're battling each other instead of focusing on the real problem, which is Fauci, the real villain, which is Fauci. We all need to realize that we the ones that believe in the terrain theory or germ theory, we're all in this together, and we're trying to make sure that our civil liberties do not get eroded and that our health isn't at risk. I think everyone could agree on that. So instead of spending the time to fight each other, we need to spend the time to shine the light on Fauci and the money that he was sending to Wuhan for this weapons development. I mean, literally, he has blood on his hands. Literally.
Yeah. No doubt. And not just him, these other leaders too, the Surgeon General, the WHO, no doubt. Not the band, the WHO.
Right. Tedros, yeah.
Yeah, not Tedros. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's
Yeah,
I don't know how this is gonna end. I have no idea.
Well, I don't know either. I think it may go on forever and ever and ever. You know, who knows? Who knows?
I had a really scary thought. Is like, what if, say, there is a cabal. We're going off that premise, or globalist, communist conspiracy. What if they're waiting until we get complacent, like collectively? You know, like
that's definitely a tactic. All
mhm.
right, and the American attention span is like a goldfish. So
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I mean, we're gonna forget. But I think they
We're gonna
didn't
forget
count.
lockdown. Half of
They
us.
did. I, I'm still on the side that it was accidentally leaked. But as time goes on, I am moving more and more towards it was purposely leaked. All right. But either way, if it was accidentally leaked or purposefully leaked, they still can use it as an opportunity to roll in their agenda. Well, what's that agenda? They already told us it's Agenda 21 and this one world government. All right. And there's a lot of information on how EcoHealth Alliance and Fauci and USAID and the NIH and Rockefeller and Bill Gates and all of them are part of this. All right. That goes all the way back to 2004. So there's enough evidence to state the case, enough circumstantial evidence to state the case that this was orchestrated. All right. Now, I think that they wanted us to get on some sort of drug therapy that's like a cocktail. Once they find out that it's AIDS-like, it's a blood disease, they get us on a cocktail for a while, and then they go, you know what, that vaccine isn't working. So everyone prophylactically needs to be on 3 medications. All right. So it's a boon for those companies that are making those medications. Then they come out with the vaccine, but they're going to say you have to take this stuff or you're not going to be going to work. You're either taking the drugs or you're taking the vaccine, and you're going to be, that will, by that time they can implement this chip idea, and it's a perfect entrance for chipping. They're going to say, well, we're going to have to vaccinate the whole population of the United States, so we can't just trust just a piece of paper. We are going to have this in a database, and they're going to say, okay, you know what, we're going to use an RFID chip or something like it that's under your skin.
Yeah.
So where do we go as citizens? I don't think that they counted on this underground network being able to expose some of the things that they were saying. They didn't think that some guy in New York taking a bioinformatics class at Harvard could uncode what happened in like 5 minutes out of their own database. But that's what happened. That's what I did. So, and then there's lots of people that have been involved. It's not just me, but there's been lots of people that have been, shining the light in different ways, like George Webb, and and showing the connections of Fauci. Doctors that are on the front line saying, hey, this is weird. People that are sharing the CT scans. I'll tell you. I mean, I've showed you some. These CT scans are not normal. There's something radically different that's going on here.
Their lungs
radically.
are just ravaged.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's really crazy. You're hearing all these stories that are taking place now. There's something real happening. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to that their wealth is starting to be destroyed. Because of they don't have a job, they're not going to work, or the stock market crashed for them and all that. I don't think they counted on people galvanizing through social media, through this kind of stuff, to shine a light on them, because they try to do the same kind of playbook as they did for 9/11. But 9/11, we didn't have all this technology back then.
What do you mean? It was a playbook, Paul? Because I was quite young when that happened. But what do you mean by similar playbook to 9/11?
Well, they had it orchestrated and they let it happen. They stirred up a bunch of terrorists and they didn't shut it down. They allowed it to happen so they can roll in this Patriot Act and have a never ending and save the day and have a never ending war in the Middle East.
Yeah,
so
going on.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it was orchestrated. I think 9/11 was orchestrated. We stood down and allowed it to happen. Cheney had the Pentagon stand down and not shoot those planes out of the sky. So, and then, Tower 7 was pre-wired. Why do you pre-wire a building in New York? It had to be pre-wired because it was pulled down. That's obvious.
I just started researching that. I've been watching channels on it, and yeah, they found evidence of steel melted from thermate.
Yeah.
And not only that, but all of these first responders that give firsthand eyewitness accounts and ear witness accounts, if one can say that, of hearing this explosion too. And it's just like, you're telling me all of those people are going against the narrative, like the people who were actually there on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going to look into it more and do my due diligence. But
well, none of that. It was Bush's brother. He was running the security firm for that area.
Jeb?
For the no, the younger brother, the much younger brother.
Okay.
Wait, I'm not sure. Is Jeb the youngest?
Jeb's the older one, I think.
Jeb is the older.
I think so. Yeah.
No, I thought.
Or am I wrong?
I thought Jeb was the middle. I thought middle.
I know that. I think W's the.
Is he? Well,
I don't know.
I thought George Bush Jr. was the oldest. Normally, you get the father's name because it's yeah. And then I thought Jeb was the second. Then the third son was this one that I'm talking. I don't know his name. So, but he was running the security firm for the Twin Towers. The day the contract ends was September 10th. Now, how the hell does that happen? And they were doing construction. They were doing some sort of construction for weeks prior to it. So people think that it was wired with that nanothermite that you're talking about. And it's possibly that's what they did with Tower 7, which is another building that's on that campus. But the bottom line is that something funny happened during 9/11, but we didn't have YouTube and we didn't have this,
Twitter,
the Twitters and Facebooks and all that, and this underground network that we have. Yeah. They underestimated the power of our voice in the underground of the people. So we are able, and we're seeing it in real time. I'm putting something out, and I'm seeing like 3 days later, it's hitting mainstream. Someone's listening. Someone's listening. Now, I don't know who it is, but someone's listening. And it's getting to the president of the United States. Now, I don't know who it is. I don't think Donald Trump is listening to our conversations. Right? I don't think so. All right. But I do think that people that have his ear are, or have the ear of the ear. It's maybe 3 degrees of separation
somewhere. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I made it very clear when I started doing videos in the end of January what I thought it was, and mainstream media is now saying it. And then the conversations with George Webb and talking about Fort Detrick and how Fauci
ahead of this, aren't we?
Yeah. So when we start talking about the hydroxychloroquine and it helps with some but not others, we're weeks ahead, sometimes
which
a month
is kind
ahead.
Of sad, to be honest, because
but here's the problem I'm getting. I've created so much content on my channel that the way the app works on mobile devices for YouTube, you can only see about 100. You can't see 200. You can't. It's hard for them to find my old stuff, and the old stuff shows how I determined that the HIV homology was in there.
Yeah.
So it's buried. It's
you
buried.
should get some like real specific playlists going, Paul, and try to organize
I think so.
that way.
I
Yeah,
think
because
so.
you have that many videos. You have way more videos than I do. One thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but when I'm doing my live streams, it's taking longer and longer to process them, and I can't access them on my video page for like sometimes 2 days now.
Yeah. Well, you're tagged. welcome to the club. Because what you'll notice is that certain words that you put in, they'll bounce your video out. What you'll also notice is that it takes longer to process your live streams.
Yeah.
After you finish.
Yep.
The other thing is that I call it throttling. They'll throttle your premiere. So if you did a recording and then you upload it and then you say you're going to premiere it, it uploads and then it does a processing time, right? Right. If you have a video that's, let's say, an hour long and it's talking about this stuff, you'll start seeing that the processing time takes like 3 or 4 times longer. So it's almost like they're scrubbing it through the process to see if they want to bounce the video or not. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you do an hour, we
don't know if they are.
But if you do an hour video about dogs, petting dogs, it processes really quick. So something's not right.
Yeah.
Just try it. Just do an experiment. Film something really benign, like trees, for an hour. All right?
Yeah.
And then film something that's talking about E7 and see the processing time. You'll find the E7 one will process longer than the tree video. Why? Well, during the processing, they're testing. Yeah, I do it, and then like do a film of that. Do a film of this test. But what I have noticed is that my processing time radically changed.
What keywords? COVID.
It's COVID-19. It's coronavirus. It's Wuhan CCP virus. Or Chinese. Something about E7. E7 does it big time.
No.
I mean, Atwood's afraid of certain things because of E7. People talking about E7 because he doesn't want his channel going down.
I did see that, and he said, I think this was last week now, Paul, that many people, like dozens of people he's worked with for years now, have been demonetized like in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I don't know, it just seems like everything's coming together and like they're just setting up for the night of the long knives,
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's a great analogy, that there is a fascist thing happening in our country, and they're going to do some sort of night event to kill people, or it's going to be a combination of Kristallnacht and Night
of the Long Knives.
And then Night of the Long Knives.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we're being rounded up, and I think that's why, me being Jewish, that's why it's so visceral for me. It's just like I have to act. I mean, when I was starting to hear about the cremations going on in Wuhan, the crematoriums and the deaths and the lies and the, and as I get more educated about it with George Webb, as he's telling me about, who the key players are and where the money was flowing and all that, I'm just like going, I have to do something about this. I mean, we cannot have our citizenry go down into some sort of FEMA camp of forced vaccinations and be chipped. Being chipped is like being numbered in the Holocaust. It's no different.
Yeah.
It's no different.
Yeah, it's not.
And we can't let that happen under
worse.
any circumstance.
You can't get tracked.
Yeah. It's and we can't let this happen. It's just we have to somehow, some way, stop it. And what's promising? 2 weeks ago, I was pretty pessimistic. about what was going on. But I'm actually optimistic now.
Yeah.
But hearing the mainstream going
Yeah,
after
it was
Fauci.
like 3 weeks ago, or maybe the first week that it was the week before everyone's got locked down, and I mean everybody. That was really dark for me because it was kind of when I realized, because honestly, Sean called it a few weeks before. He's yo, there's a tidal wave coming. And I was like, dang, I've never seen Sean like this before. He looks kind of scared. And this guy's been in jail.
Right.
So I was like, okay, that got my attention. But it still took a little bit more time for me to really just snap out of it and be like, dude, you got to wake up and do something, because I'm not going out without somewhat of a fight,
Right.
And
but here's the point.
Here's our liberties while we can.
Here's the point. I've been saying from day one on the channel, we have to help our neighbor. We have to, be informed citizens. We have to be engaged. I'm telling you, I can sense it happening. There's going to be so many pissed off mothers out there that don't want their kids force vaccinated.
What about the dudes with guns, like the biker gangs in the militias?
Well, you know what? I think the pissed off mothers are more dangerous than the biker dudes.
Yeah. Most of the time they are.
So and the thing is that if women's if let's say their guy, their husband or their boyfriend doesn't want to do anything, okay, she can just cut him off. You know what I mean? She could just cut him off, and and they have the power. I mean, the women have the power
in relationships.
Yeah. So if the woman's saying, "I don't want my kids getting forced vax," so Tommy, go out and do something, and Tommy says, "Well, I just want to watch reruns on Netflix," and she just says, "Well, you're not getting any," and Tommy will go, damn, I better do something. So, so I'm assuming that this biological urge, will actually get things moving and actually, get people to realize that, hey, we may be, going down a road of tyranny unless we shine a light and prosecute the people that have been orchestrating this. And it's a lot of different people.
In the during the Spanish flu in Philadelphia, actually, it was the mothers who kind of took charge of getting people situated and stuff, because the politicians and the businessmen, they didn't heed the warnings that the wave was coming, and they paid dearly. And kind of in response to that, from what I saw in this documentary, I think it's on YouTube, they organized and got people together and basically became community leaders in that sense.
Mm-hmm. My observation from the people that have sent me emails or have commented on the channel, I would say that I want to say maybe 60% of the ones that got it were females. It was 40% on the male side.
What percent of your viewers?
Like right away. What I'm talking about is right away.
Okay.
They and it took a little longer for the guys to get it. Yeah. I think the women actually understood right away what was going on.
Yeah.
And I just think it's motherly instinct.
Yeah.
For some reason, or it might be the motherly instinct coupled with the fluorination and and lowering of the testosterone in our society. It's kind of like, so they've kind of put us into a scenario where they want us to be docile and just kind of just accept everything.
Oh yeah.
I just lost my job. Wait, what?
Are you talking about males at large?
Males in general in the United States.
Yeah. Please go on.
Yeah. So, so basically there's this endocrine disruption that's going on with fluoride. And when you disrupt your endocrine system, you're not going to be producing the right amounts of testosterone. And for males, they may actually produce more estrogen. Males produce estrogen, but it's primarily primarily testosterone. But if you're lowering your testosterone and slightly increasing your estrogen, it's going to change your behavior, especially when you need to be a K species, when you need to be the sheepdog. So they made the men to the point where there's not enough sheepdogs.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of like, so what will happen is that you scare them. First you shock them. The shock is this virus. You scare them by they just lost their job, and then now they're going to go, and they're already in this docile kind of low testosterone phase. So what will happen is they'll go, well, whatever the answer is, government, I'll take it. You want me to have that vaccine so I can get my job back? Okay. Well, a sheepdog would basically say, bow, wow, wow, I'm not getting the vax, and by the way, I'm going to be talking to an attorney and burning down your 5G tower, bow, wow, wow, so we need to start barking,
That's a great way to put it, Paul. Sheepdogs. You know who else described it that way is Tim Kennedy. Mm-hmm. He is like, if you know who that is, yeah, he calls them sheepdogs. That's funny.
Yeah. But he is, he's special forces.
Yeah.
He's a special force guy. Yeah, he's alpha male. He's got a lot of testosterone, and he wants to kick butt, and it would be really cool if we could get on the round table like an ex Navy SEAL guy or special forces guy, and and get a perspective like being in the military. And if there was this kind of like revolutionary thing that happens in the citizenry because they don't want the forced vaccinations, what would the military really do? Would they follow the government, or would they say, you know what, we're going to follow with the citizens? Because I'm willing to bet that they follow the citizens and not the government. They may follow the government at first.
Come down to the individual, I think, wouldn't it? That seems like a pretty personal choice.
I think at first they'll be following the government because that's how they're trained. But then they'll start realizing that, wait a minute, this is war crime. This is like against the Constitution. I think something will switch and they'll go, you know what, we're not doing it.
Maybe. Hopefully they learn from World War II because, I mean, the Nazis, there were some dissenters, but there weren't many. And those that did were usually squashed pretty quick. And another thing, too, that was pointed out to me is that the SA, once they weren't no longer used, and it was during the Night of the Long Knives, and the leaders of the SA, the upper brass essentially, all got taken out, and so they got assimilated into the SS. So that's one thing that I don't know. I think there would be a philosophical conflict for all of them at some point, but if it's not happening for most of them, or if most of them are going along with what the government says at the critical stage at the beginning of the coup, then most of the damage will be done, I think, by then. Because say they round everybody up, and then after the fact, all the males are rounded up. All able-bodied males are taken care of, and then the police are like, oh shoot, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. By then I think it's too late. So
see here, it was possible to do because Germany was smaller. America's pretty big.
Yeah, America.
Right. Yeah. So that might happen in, let's say, New York or Boston.
Yeah,
but somewhere So somewhere in Texas or somewhere in the Midwest, would get the word, and they would start preparing for it.
Those would be the hot spots, I think, would be Texas, the Midwest, and then Cali, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, where, so my point here is that I don't think that they would be able to control the whole nation.
Yeah.
There would be word would get out, and then there would be a red line. The red line or a firewall would be created.
Where it's like,
stop it.
You have to get ready, they're coming, type of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's something very similar to what happened during the voting during the last election. For Trump for the general election, the presidential general election in 2016. If you look at the states, Hillary was winning. Not all the counts were coming in. we had to wait. But Hillary was winning, and it looked like Trump was actually going to lose. But it was Pennsylvania, it was Michigan, it was Wisconsin. It was the Midwest that got him in.
Yeah.
Right.
So
something very similar could happen, where it's the Midwest that saves the country.
Yeah. That's the heartland, man. That's the heartland of America.
That's what I'm saying. Is that it's about as apple pie as it gets.
Sure.
So you could have FEMA camps, or compliance in the Eastern Seaboard area and maybe even the West Coast, but I don't think you're going to get compliance in Middle America and Texas. No way. And it's like, and then so they'll try to control the East and the West Coast. They won't be able to control the Midwest, and then the Midwest will push back and kick them out. But hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, our citizenry needs to actually stop talking and start acting. So I would think, and I don't, it's almost to the point, all right, not quite, but it's almost to the point where we need to actually pull down those 5G towers before they get too many. Before we have too many of them around.
In New York? Because I haven't kept up with it the last day or two, and I mean, what I can tell is in England, it's getting serious in terms of them building them, but I haven't seen. Well, actually, that's not true. I did see that. I think it was in the Netherlands they burned them down.
We don't see anyone destroying property in the New York area. They are putting them on buildings. That's for sure. You can see them. You can see them on the buildings. They're like, hopping from one building to another. So that's happening, but they're not. No one's destroying the properties. They're primarily because it's hard to get to the rooftop. How you going to get to the rooftop? You have to go through the lobby, and you have to go up the stairs, and unless you have a citizen, or a someone that's living in the building that's willing to tear it down, at night, which would be cool. But but
Rorschach.
But in areas that are more rural or more suburban, then it's much easier to tear down. Yeah. But in New York, it would be hard.
We are not.
But it would be cool. But it's if they, here's my case on it. If they are putting something up that can hurt your body, all right, by affecting your immune system, which there's some data that shows that. But if they're putting up something that is eroding your ability to be a free citizen, it is our right and obligation to tear it down. Because if someone is going to put something up in the front of your house that's going to harm you and your family, isn't it your right and your obligation to tear it down?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how's that any different? If they put it on, let's say, a private, right on the sidewalk, where it's public property, but the beaming technology of whatever they're putting up affects your children.
Yeah.
I
hope it's come to that,
or make it even worse. They have the beaming technology plus a drone flying right over your home. Watching you 24/7.
Well, they got drones in England that they're using to catch people out and about. So,
yeah. I mean, it's just wrong. So just because they do it, here's the point. Just because they do it doesn't mean they should. And the citizenry should not allow it. But what's happening is we're becoming complacent and just say, well, we don't have any power. No, you do have power. You can tear it down.
I saw Paul. I maybe next COVID roundtable, I'll see if I can dig up the tweet. But I saw this tweet. It's from a young person, young female. I don't know, college student or something. But she basically was saying the same thing you just said. That, well, the opposite, really. That, like, what are we gonna do? I don't have any power. And dude, it had thousands of retweets and favorites, like tens of thousands. And I'm like, yo, what are you guys talking about? And I just said, like, yo, that's not me. Like, I know I have some power. And that's just such a terrible way to think. And it's what they want too. What these people who want to make all these decisions for us want is for no one to be thinking critically.
I think that the true revolution is going to be coming not from the young, which is usually what happens, but
It's so backwards.
Yeah, but it's going to come from the Gen Xers, because the Gen Xers, a lot of them were raised on death metal. It was Metallica and Megadeth and these types of bands, Anthrax and and all these bands that right. But but the thing is that these bands had an energy and that in adolescence it created this kind of like
angst.
Anger. So okay, now the anger went away, but it's dormant because it was produced in adolescence. Okay.
Oh, you're getting Jungian on me.
Yeah. So what's going to happen here is that the Gen Xers are going to see that their wealth has been taken away from them and their civil liberties have been taken away from them, and that adolescence is going to kick in, and all those hours of listening to Metallica or going to their concerts, it's going to kick in, and they're going to start getting violent. Meanwhile, some of the younger generation, it's a more pop. It's more like pop, like Taylor Swift and hip
hop,
hip hop, too. But even rap, hip hop's a little different than rap, but even rap is a little, has that anger in it.
Definitely.
So even that crowd that's living, that's listening to that is going to kick in and say, hell no, we're going to do something. And so it's like the speed metalists and the rappers that are going to bring back that are going to bring back this country, because they're going to say, fuck no, this is not going to happen, because that's what we listened to when we were young. So I think that the revolution is that I'm talking about, the people that are going to try to stop the Faucis and this Agenda 21 and erosion of our civil liberties and forced vaccinations.
China apologists.
It's going to be Gen X. That's it's like, that's the X. No, you're not doing it.
That's what they do in Japan. That's their one of their nonverbals. It just means no, or we're closed.
Right. Right. So when I was at Nissan, the term they used, they didn't do this, but they did something similar. They did. They said NG, no go. No go, Paul-san. No go.
You were in Japan?
Yeah, I lived in Japan for a year and a half. But
that's awesome. Where in Japan? Mainland or?
It was mainland. It was Yokohama and Tokyo. So I was working for Nissan on the Pathfinder program.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was during my automotive engineering days. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I was in the studio. Working with the designers with the clay, and then we were doing surface modeling, and then we transfer that over to the different engineering departments for packaging, and then I had to work with the manufacturing engineers. So I was working in Japan, and then for a year and a half, and then we transferred over the project back to the United States, because the Pathfinder is the SUV platform, which was being manufactured in Tennessee.
Okay.
So the Detroit engineers during the early development worked in Japan, and then we would take all that knowledge and transfer it over to the United States for manufacturing in Tennessee. But I enjoyed it. That was cool, and things change in industries. During that time was when there was a lot of technology transfer that was going to India. So very high paying jobs were starting to, be cut. And, I saw this just constant lowering of the industry in Michigan. So I decided to go into financing and go to New York, but that's a different path, like London Real, what he did was, but London Real, he never did that. He just, learned the engineering and then went right to finance. You know,
Yeah,
he
he
didn't
didn't
practice
apply it.
engineering. Yeah, he didn't practice engineering. And you can learn a lot about this country and its capabilities when you engineer and manufacture things, you know, and the importance of that and all the economic clustering that takes place because of that. So I kind of miss my automotive days. I love cars, you know, but you know, you know, and I enjoyed finance, but you know, now I'm doing the medicine thing. But you know, I miss those days actually. There's something about working with clay and doing the CAD and
Oh wow, that's all.
seeing it. Yeah, yeah, you know, yeah. So so I started my career in automotive doing CAD CAM, So you know, drawing three-dimensional parts and then designing the molds. Primarily, the molds were injection molds, plastic molds, but I also did stamp die design, and then you know, just watching it being made on a CNC machine. You know, you're cutting the tool, so we're making the cutter pass, so we design the part, and then we're designing the mold, and then cutting the metal, either aluminum or steel.
How big
Sometimes
were the
titanium.
teams that you worked on when you worked for Nissan? Like, how big was your team? Like in just a given day, normal day.
My team was about 20 people in our engineering team. But to do a whole vehicle, you need about 400 engineers, 450 engineers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about car making.
No, it's fascinating. If I just had a garage and I had enough tools, I could easily design and build my own car. No, from scratch.
Maybe a project for retirement, huh?
Yeah. Well, I've wanted, you know, to maybe, you know, design and, you know, make a car, you know, because that's what happened with what was it, the Viper, Chrysler Viper, that was made in someone's garage as a prototype. It was a prototype,
really?
and yeah, and then Chrysler, it was to compete with the Corvette. It was Chrysler's version of the Corvette, but it was done in someone's garage. And I know how to do that.
That guy get paid?
I'm trained to do that.
Did
So
the guy who made the Viper, did he get paid?
well, yeah. I mean, he was part of it. He was part of the team that you know, launched that whole vehicle. So, but I think actually the Viper is a cooler car than the Corvette. But the Corvette, it's got huge brand recognition.
Brand name, yeah.
Yeah, that it was hard. And same thing with the Mustang. You know, it has huge brand recognition. But yeah, I miss those days, and I can kind of see, you know, someday, you know, making, you know, it's like Tesla. Tesla's a cool concept, you know, with the powertrain.
Ridiculous concept,
Yeah,
when you understand how difficult it is to get into the car industry.
Yeah. No, he's doing a pretty good job, but he's taking the tech side, the California tech, and is trying to apply it to automotive. He's missing the boat on something. There's not enough. The surfaces on his cars aren't sexy enough.
Oh, really?
There's
You
something.
think so?
Yeah. There's something about the design that's missing. The powertrain concept is a great idea, and they're starting to make Formula E cars where they, you know, go at, you know,
really?
200 miles an hour. Oh yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they can make, you know, they can make these cars, you know, go fast, you know, but there's something about his designs that are just not. Where is the Corvette or the Mustang in the model line? Yeah, you got the Cybertruck, but where's the Mustang? You know what I mean? Or where's the Viper? That's where automotive is. That's
the Bay magnet.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't think the Cybertruck, you know, the Cyberpunk truck is going to be the Bay magnet. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but you know, but I just don't see it.
Maybe out in the backwoods somewhere in the rural America.
Right. So in parting, so I want the people on my channel to, subscribe to you and to hear your content and, all the different publications that, you're doing. So what's the best way to reach you and see your content?
Definitely, Paul. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm on YouTube. That's my principal place that I'm putting any productive output. But I do use Twitter too. One Addy Ads, ONEADDYADDS, and well, we can put all in the description box. But I just made a Facebook a couple weeks ago, and I'm still kind of learning how to use it. I don't get as many traffic on there as my other places. You got a Facebook, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get a lot of traffic, but the
Yeah.
only thing I'm posting lately is just links
post.
to the links to the YouTube.
That's typically what I do is I'll just post the links, but I have been also posting full videos too. Like I put our chat up there, our first chat up there on my Facebook too, just in case people, do that and would prefer to watch it on Facebook. But most of the traffic in terms of videos is obviously here on YouTube. So, but yeah, I got interviews with a Scotland Yard detective, with an ex-con, as I said, 2 ex-cons, actually, an author, another author from Nevada who writes about psychology and intersexual dynamics, an author from Colorado who writes about power structures. So yeah, got some cool interviews, and hopefully, one of those piques some interest in your audience, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what I'll do is I'll package this, put it on YouTube, then I'm going to promote it on Twitter, Facebook, and my LinkedIn account. I have a pretty big LinkedIn account, actually.
Okay.
And I get actually more traffic from the LinkedIn than from Facebook.
Really? I don't
know why. I don't know why that is.
Add you, because I've never made one before, and I don't know. I guess I wasn't sure if I wasn't going to be in finance or business officially. I didn't really think to make one, but I'll make one.
Well, it's strange because normally you try to be professional on LinkedIn, but then I'm throwing these F-bombs, videos, or C-bombs, to a particular individual that lives in New York. But but it's funny because it's taboo to do, but people find it as it's genuine, and I think that maybe that's why. But I get a lot of people commenting from LinkedIn, a lot, and that was my primary way of sharing my content when my channel on YouTube was so low. I mean, I only had 500 or 700 subscribers, and that was like and it was more of a diary to save for people. But yeah, and that's why I was leveraging LinkedIn early on.
I should do that because it's just another channel or avenue to get more eyeballs, really. But yeah, I'll add you too, and I won't do it necessarily right away or at all if you don't want to, but if you want to share the file with me too, and then in a few days I could upload a video to my channel too, and likewise too with the collabs we did.
No, definitely. So what we probably could do is I was gonna try to premiere it tonight, but I can send you the source file if you want, and then you can upload it to your channel and premiere it or publish it or however you want to do it anytime you want.
Let's do it on your channel first, and then I just want it on my channel at some point, so it's a reference, so people know that I did that with you. Because there will be people in the future who come to my channel who don't necessarily know who you are. So that way, when they do look at my channel and maybe it piques their interest, they click on it and they can see you too. But just in terms of the views, I think it would be better if you premiered it on your channel first, and then after the initial wave of views comes, maybe in a few days, then I can put it on mine.
Okay. Now, usually these video files are larger, so I can share a Dropbox link to you to download.
That works. That's usually how I do it. I usually do Google Drive or Dropbox.
I'm not a big fan of Google. So I don't do Google Drive, but I'll do Dropbox. So
Yeah.
I was an early adopter of Dropbox. So I was able to get a ton of free space because I kept on telling people, go to Dropbox and sign up, sign up and sign up. Yeah. And I just got a ton of extra space because of it.
Yeah,
So
it just gets more expensive, doesn't it? It seems to the mass cloud storage.
Unless you're an early adopter.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, thank you very much for coming
Thanks,
on the
Paul.
channel.
Thanks for
And
having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, well, I mean, I enjoy talking to you, and I want to help promote your channel because of the work that you're doing, and I enjoy those roundtable discussions that you have.
And check those out, anybody listening. We got another one this weekend, and Paul's going to be on, as far as I know.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I missed the last one because I was moving and I didn't have internet connection. On top of that, I accidentally double booked. I was on a Michael Deacon's show,
and now you're in the new studio,
yeah. So now I'm working out the bugs, but it was I like those round tables, and I actually I talked to you after I talked to you yesterday. Saying that I apologize for missing that. I really like those. I like the idea of having a group of people sharing their ideas, and I think actually a lot of people that watch it, they like the little sparring that happens. It's friendly. It's friendly sparring. It's friendly. All right, it's friendly. But I think we do have a good chemistry on that round table of the four of us.
Yeah, I think
so. We all have something to contribute, and we're all doing this for the right reasons. We want to help people, and we're trying to get to the bottom of things, and that's that's the way it is.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Paul.
So everyone that's watching this, please go to your channel, and all of the links are going to be in the description box, and I will share you this video on Dropbox, and you can upload it whenever you want. Okay.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah, no problem.
Cheers.